She's the Empress of Tomorrow with flashy kicks, a flashy wardrobe, and an incredibly alluring look to her. One where you had to stand and just cheer and watch to see what Asuka would do next. And what Asuka did next was win. She kept winning. Winning, baby. Winning so goddamn much. From her NXT debut all the way until WrestleMania 34. Don't worry, we will get to that. But for a time, nobody was ready for Asuka. I'm John Redland with my real honest thoughts on wrestling's undefeated streak. Who benefited? Episode 2, Asuka. Okay, so I did one on Bill Goldberg. You can check that out if you want. I decided to record these basically in a block because I had the energy to, and also my time is limited because I've got a whole lot of work, so I decided to take a couple hours and record this stuff. Asuka is one of my favorites, and truth be told, I wish her nothing but the best, whether she comes back to wrestling at any point or whether she just, decides to do what she does. She has her own, other side businesses, and also she has done just about everything she needs to do. So whatever she wants to do with her life, it's her life. Don't you forget, it's her life, and it may eventually end, but not yet, not yet, to quote Jaimin Hanzo. I think that's how you say it, but Asuka really did have an incredible run of an undefeated streak. Okay, she was in a Battle Royal or two where she got eliminated, and that might count against the undefeated streak nature, but that being said, undefeated streaks have been a staple of professional wrestling going back to the carnival days and all that, even into the modern era. And I got a few other episodes lined up, such as Hogan in WCW for about the first 15 or so months, and Taker at WrestleMania. But Asuka, known as Kana in Japan, did actually have to retire for a bit due to injuries, and has spoken up about time, she had had the best time in, I think, one particular promotion. I forget which one it was. Those that are more Japanese centric can let me know in the comments. But I remember hearing about that, and I saw some clips. Okay, people would send me clips, so a couple full matches and stuff like that, and I liked what I saw. And she showed up, and I go, okay, yes, more of this. She looks great. She just looks like a star, and she is a star. And she has that just star quality about her. She just has that incredible just style to her. Whether she's in a freaking business suit, whether she's in a wrestling gear, it doesn't matter. And sure, English is a second language for her, but she is able to translate, with her tremendous offense. And also her English isn't all that bad, all things considered. So when she showed up, and Dana Brooke, Dana Brooke decided, yeah, I'm a rookie here, so to speak, so I'm going to, mess with Asuka. And then that led to, then Asuka just got that smile where, Dana Brooke's going to die. And Dana Brooke lasted in that company a whole lot longer because she didn't die at TakeOver Respect. Where, in all seriousness, it wasn't a bad match. I mean, Dana had to fly around for her, and Asuka was able to be a ring general and take a rookie, a virtual rookie, and make her look better than she honestly would have without an experienced opponent that actually cared about putting on a good performance. And then she would have some TV matches. This is when NXT TV was not only an hour, but was more about, showcasing some squash matches with the occasional, main event, but really some vignettes and stuff like that. This is when it was in its infancy without the competition of AEW. So then they build up to where Asuka took on Emma at TakeOver London, which was a great match, by the way. That's one I need to actually go back and rewatch, because that London crowd was pretty goddamn impressive. And Emma, very talented. It never really quite clicked for her when she got to the main roster the first time. And Leo Rush stuck his foot in his mouth, which made him even surer than he actually was. But then she, showed up in Impact. She did well. She showed back up in WWE. Hey, she met Madcap Moss. They're married. Good for them. But yeah, that match with Asuka was kind of the peak of what she ended up doing as far as the main roster, or as far as anything big, as far as in-ring work. And Emma, yes, is a very good wrestler. And I don't even know what the fuck she's doing now. But her and Asuka had a great match to take over London. And then, there's the number one contender stuff to build and stuff like that, because they were actually trying to put more of a focal point, on their women's division there. Bayley had been the champion since TakeOver Brooklyn 1 against Sasha Banks. Yes, Mercedes Moné now. honest to God, still one of the best matches that WWE has put on in at least, I would say, the last 20 years. One of the best women's matches for sure, but one of the best matches, period. The build, if you weren't there for the build, you might not. I get goosebumps. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about the goddamn match right now. The atmosphere is perfect. There were a couple landings that were a little bit rough, but that's because they were two friends behind the scenes, and they built this rivalry up really well. And when Sasha lost, it was great. That pop, just a little sidebar here, that pop when Bayley pushed off, pushed off the ropes into her own bank statement. It's like, Jesus, you would have thought the roof would have come off the place. Whole point is Bayley was a champion from that point, defended against Sasha again to take over Respect. Defending against, I think, Nia to take over London. I didn't know that they had a barge that big that would be able to take Nia over there that quickly. And then faced off against Asuka at TakeOver Dallas. The same one where Sami Zayn and Shinsuke Nakamura had a match that was very, very good. And then Asuka would beat Bayley and would be the champion for until she went to the main roster. More on that in a bit. But she would then face off against Nia at TakeOver The End, which I don't know why they called it TakeOver The End. I mean, guess it was the end for the run of Balor and various other people, but still, it wasn't the end for Bayley because it wasn't a very good match. I'm not really going to spend a lot of time on it, but she did face off against Bayley again at TakeOver Brooklyn 2, Electric Boogaloo, and beat Bayley, but you knew Bayley was gone by then because she had shown up on Raw, testing the waters, that kind of stuff, and she was still doing the hugger thing with the, the streamers, that kind of stuff, Randy Savage-like and whatever, and it worked for Bayley, but it was time for her to move on. She had literally done everything that she could and then some in NXT, and Asuka was going to have a new crop of talent to face off against. But after being Bayley at TakeOver Brooklyn 2, Electric Boogaloo, she's still a champion. It's going well. Mickie James shows back up in shocking fashion, because I don't think people expected that. Faces off against Asuka at TakeOver Toronto, which did feature DIY and Gargano and Ciampa against the Revival, aka now FTR, in one of the best goddamn matches I've seen of the modern era. Not as good as what FTR and Gin and Juice did, or White Juice as I called them, until I realized that was really kind of a little bit degrading? Yeah, degrading. Let's go with that. But Mickie and Asuka, it wasn't perfect, but it was a pretty good match. And it was nice to see Mickie back on a big stage after her years in Impact. Doing very well, I might add. But then they would kind of enter a bit of a winter lull. They would do television. They would try to build up the Iconics, Billie Kay and Peyton. I hope they're both doing well. And Nikki Cross, back when Nikki Cross and Asuka actually had a pretty good TV match sometime in 2017. I think it was like a last woman standing match or something. I don't remember the exact stipulation, but I know they used a lot of weapons. But they did well with it. And that was something pretty good. That was actually when they allowed Nikki to wrestle and not, even with the goofy costume as opposed to what she's doing now. But when the Iconics were really good, you want to talk about a team that should have just been the first tag team champions, should have had a run for like about a goddamn year. It should have been the fucking Iconics. But it was a 4-way match at TakeOver San Antonio. And it wasn't great. It was like really rushed. Like it was really, really fucking rushed. I think it was like 10 minutes. And there were some decent spots, but it was a little bit rushed. And then Asuka would enter a feud with Ember Moon. That is easy for me to say. The Athena, the current Ring of Honor Women's Champion. The world will be irradiated. Half the world will be overrun by the infected from The Last of Us. And Ember Moon will still be the Ring of Honor Champion. The year will be 2045. I kid, of course, but you would be very surprised, if my prediction didn't end up coming true. Or would you not be surprised? So, Ember Moon. And honest to God, this is probably where the streak should have ended, if we're being perfectly honest, because Ember was ready. And Asuka had been undefeated from, October 2015 to now. No undefeated streak needs to go for, that goddamn long. I mean, yeah, even though I talked about, the undefeated streak of Bill Goldberg needing to go on a bit longer, that still only went on about 15, 16 months. This was getting to the point now where it was starting to enter, okay, now it's just getting ridiculous territory. We're not there yet, but just give it a minute. So she beats Ember Moon. Pretty good match from what I remember. I still have to go back and watch some of this stuff, but Asuka was delivering really good matches and had some good opponents. And then faced off at TakeOver Chicago against Nikki and Ruby. If I remember right, I think Ember was injured, because I think they were going to do a rematch here, but they didn't. I don't remember what the injury was. I don't remember if it was shoulder or what it was. Maybe I'm thinking of Asuka's injury, because Asuka had some kind of injury that necessitated her. Well, I'll get to it in a minute. But Nikki and Ruby, and it was all right. It wasn't great, but it was what it was. And then we don't go to TakeOver the end. We don't have that. We'd had a really quick TakeOver turnaround. And then we go to Ember Moon again at TakeOver Brooklyn 3, Revenge of the Shit booking, because Ember Moon did not win here. And that's not to say, by the way, that it's Asuka's fault. It was just Triple H's booking and stuff like that. And this, by the way, is where Asuka would end up giving up the championship because she was injured. Now, maybe she really was injured. I don't know. I don't know how injured she actually was, because she was not out of the ring that goddamn long, as I'll get to in a minute. So I think it was just a way to write her off. And maybe she needed a little bit of a break. Because honestly, she'd been helping the women's division. And honestly, by the end, kind of hindering the women's division. I mean, you got Shayna Baszler. And I could have done an undefeated streak about Shayna Baszler. But that would have involved talking about her title reign. And she actually lost to Kairi Sane for a couple months. So, nevertheless. So, she beats Ember Moon again. Gives up the title. And then the title was held up for a little bit. So, Asuka goes to the main roster. She faces off against Emma at No Mercy 2017. And then Emma's released soon after. Leo Rush sticks his little foot in his mouth. Short people got no reason to live. And then that's about it. He really should be on the opposite side of the barricade with the fans. Except they need to give him a booster seat or put him on somebody's shoulders. So see, you can see just like the adults, Leo. So anyway, Emma was a pretty good match. That was when Kirk Angel had to show up and be the third member of the Shield dad, as it were. That was kind of cool to see. But then, it was Ember Moon in a 4-way that won the title. And then, Asuka's there and gives her the title. Like, yeah, you couldn't beat me twice, but here's the title. It felt very subdued and actually kind of sent the women's division, not in the women's title legacy, kind of in a spiral. Not the division. The division, I don't think the division necessarily was gutted, but it wasn't as elevated, I think, maybe as I initially thought once I kind of racked my brain a little bit about it. But that being said, Asuka's off to the main roster. Ember's a champion. She's not the champion very long, because if I recall right, Shayna Baszler beats her pretty quickly. Hoo boy. But then then Asuka is doing pretty well on the main roster. TV matches, appearances, that kind of stuff. Wins the Women's Royal Rumble, the first ever Women's Royal Rumble. Look who she eliminated last. That's what they were going to treat Asuka like. Let's put those women in last. I know one of them has gone through a whole lot of stuff, but Jesus. You know, if you know, you know. I'm not going to try to be mean, but good grief. And then Asuka faced off against Nia at Elimination Chamber. And had Nia won, she would have been added to the match. And to be quite honest, it wouldn't have been the worst thing. Maybe Nia could have lost, because then, against Charlotte at WrestleMania 34. All they had to do was have Asuka win. Just have her win. And then if you're going to have Carmella cash in, Carmella cashes in. And it's something where Asuka's beaten down and Carmella cashes in and she wins it. You know, like on the following SmackDown or whatever it was. But they couldn't do that. And it made no sense. It made no sense. Because Asuka looked like an idiot. And then Asuka would enter a feud with Carmella where she would continue to look like an idiot, especially when James Ellsworth, you know, that creep, that cretin, that troll that lives under a bridge. That guy that I'm actually pretty convinced that I know a few friends that guy actually beat the shit out of him, and probably should for how much of a creepy troll he is. That being said, They made Asuka look like a goddamn idiot and just completely, I mean, they buried her for a time. They did. One of the most fearsome strikers that they had, and they reduced her to idiotic status for Carmella. Carmella, who could never work a goddamn lick to save her life. Especially in a main event spot. Now, she could do a few good things. She could get a leg vice on. Congratulations, you can open and close your legs. Good, you're a normal human. But, you know, when that's the best thing you can fucking do and Mella is money, yeah, I don't know what they got for putting a microphone in front of Carmella, but to quote Jim Cornette about Stable, it should have been 3 to 5 years. That being said, Asuka's streak was totally done. I'm not saying her aura, and I hate using that word, it's so fucking overused. There's no reason why they should have damaged that and popped that bubble at that point for Charlotte. Charlotte, who, by the way, was going to be just as over regardless. She had won at WrestleMania 32. She hadn't won at WrestleMania 33. Bayley had retained there. If she had lost at WrestleMania 34, would it have mattered? No. No, it wouldn't have fucking mattered. And it just ended up destroying Asuka's, aura of invincibility for a time. And she's still been beneficial to the company, don't get me wrong. But the thing is who ultimately the question of this, who would have benefited? Who benefited from ending her streak? Nobody, because Charlotte certainly didn't benefit. And then we got Carmella as champion for what seemed like forever. It was worse than the gender run, which is saying a lot. But, basically, Ember Moon would have benefited from being Asuka at TakeOver Brooklyn 3. And then you could have had Asuka start another undefeated streak on the main roster. She would have had the one blemish against Ember Moon, and then you could have had Ember Moon be called up, and then you could have worked that into a program. That would have been the perfect cherry on top. Not even a euphemism. The whole point is, though, they didn't do that. They didn't do that at all. Ember Moon would have benefited. You could, I don't know. I don't think the Iconics would have benefited. No disrespect to them. Just because they were seen as a tandem. While it would have been cool to see, one of them get the victory, I don't think that would have worked. Ember needed that and didn't get it. And Charlotte didn't need it and got it. And that's where fans really started to turn on Charlotte. And it really hasn't been the same sense for either woman. But that being said, Ember Moon would have benefited. Charlotte didn't benefit. And who do you think would have benefited from ending Asuka's streak? Do you think it should have continued after WrestleMania 34? Should we have never gotten a Carmella title reign? The answer is yes. But if you don't agree, that's fine. But nevertheless, agree, disagree, what I said. Like, share, subscribe. Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Retlin. Until we meet again, happy trails to you.